Welcome to UW Sounds of the World, a sampler of films from the Robert Garfias collection in the University of Washington Ethnomusicology Archives. I'm Laurel Sercom. During the 1960s and 70s, Dr. Garfias filmed hundreds of musicians during field trips abroad, as well as right here on campus. Today, we're going to see several performances of flamenco by Spanish musicians Pedro Bacán and Anzonini del Puerto. My guest is Jim Kuhn, flamenco aficionado, and the person responsible for bringing both Pedro Bacán and Anzonini to Seattle in the 1970s. Welcome, Jim. Would you tell us a little bit about the flamenco tradition?
Thanks, Laurel, for having me. I can only speak from my personal experience, and I have my biases, but my understanding is that flamenco is an art form that was created by Spanish gypsies, not out of nothing. It was forged out of the musical traditions that they found in Andalusia, the southern part of Spain, and especially in those small pueblos along the Guadalquivir River that goes from Sevilla to Cádiz. Pueblos like Lebrija, where Pedro Bacán is from, Puerto Santa Maria, where Anzonini's from. And these were, this is a flamenco tradition that was nourished and developed among what we call, or what I call, classical gypsy families. And these are families that were mostly devoted to the flamenco singing, the song, because in the flamenco household, or the gypsy household, it's the cante, or the song, that is the important part, not the guitar or the dance. Those are kind of accompaniments to it. And so there's a distinction between family style gypsy flamenco and then what I call, what has been called commercial theater flamenco. And one of the distinctions is that in family style flamenco, the objective is to get a singer to kind of move into a space where maybe they even transcend their own physical limitations, and there's a sound and an experience that is almost quasi-religious, and everything moves toward that. In theater flamenco, you have a large stage, it's more athletic, it's more of a spectacle, as it has to be, and so you can't have that same kind of experience, or it's very difficult. And so, as I said before, Anzonini and Pedro represent the gypsy flamenco that you're about to see.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Pedro Bacán, the guitarist.
Okay. I first met Pedro in the early 70s when I went to Sevilla to study guitar myself, and then I heard from a friend that there was this terrific guitarist who was willing to give lessons. And at the time, Pedro was in the military, and he was stationed at the cuartel, or the military base in Sevilla. So I went there and I met him, and he agreed to teach me. And then that was the beginning of a really long friendship till his death, actually. And so Pedro, turns out, comes from one of those classical gypsy families that I mentioned. And they were mostly singers. In fact, he had a great-grandfather named Pinini, who created a form or style of alegrias of Pinini, that's still sung today. And Pedro grew up singing, and then only came to the guitar when he was around 15 years old. He's self-taught. I think he's a musical genius. He figured out all those harmonies that you'll hear all by himself. They're within traditional forms, so there is that. But within that, he created all this music. Pedro can sing better than most of the singers that he accompanied. And so his music comes out of that singing tradition. It's lyrical. Like a lot of people, he was influenced by Paco de Lucia, but when you listen to Pedro, it's a unique voice. Yeah. You can't mistake it.
Yeah. And now, let's watch and listen. This is going to be Pedro Bacán, filmed by Dr. Garfias in 1977, playing first Soleares and then Bulerías. That was Pedro Bacán with Soleá and Bulería. Jim, what can you tell us about our next musician, Anzonini del Puerto?
Anzonini. Well, I actually didn't know Anzonini when I was in Spain. I met him after, when I got back. And, but while I was in Spain, I would run into people and they'd say, man, you should stay here a couple more days. Anzonini's new in town. Or, you just missed Anzonini. What a great fiesta. Anzonini was, he was kind of like a flamenco brush fryer that would move through into a town and it'd be nonstop flamenco and then he'd leave with embers behind. He's a festero. He's a singer-dancer whose art can really best be appreciated in the intimate setting that I talked about before. It's not an art form that translates to the stage well at all. He's a flamenco dancer. They used to say that Anzonini could dance on a handkerchief. And you'll see that when he dances. It's very, what we call corto, but there's a lot of expression in his face, in his hands, in his body. And so I brought him, a friend of mine called me from Berkeley and said, we bought Anzonini a plane ticket and we brought him here to Berkeley. He's carrying on just like he's in southern Spain. He's making chorizo, he's dancing, he's got a place, you should bring him up to Seattle. So we did. And we had a few good years with him. Anzonini, what else can I say about it? Oh, the tabla. You watch him play the tabla. It isn't really an instrument. It's usually played on a tabletop or whatever. But one of the stories he used to tell was that he had a contest with Carmen Amaya, and who could do the best. And he claims he won. And he told her, you can take the money, or you take the prize, I'll take the money.
Yeah.
And you'll see how he plays it like a grand piano. It's a great
Okay.
artist. Yeah.
So here is Anzonini with Gary Hayes on guitar, filmed by Dr. Garfias in 1979. We're going to see 3 sections of this particular session. Anzonini marking the rhythms on a tabletop, then Anzonini singing, and finally Anzonini dancing.
perdí el otro día, lo que fatiga el año, me dio, ay, que dura se me corazón. A la calle me salí, a la calle me salí, hay a todo el mundo primo que yo veía, mira, mira que no soy de bronce, una piedra, trinita mía se quebranta. A fuerza de darle todo. De tanto mirar la rosa, ay, de tanto mirar la rosa, despacito mi clavo.
And that was Anzonini del Puerto with marking the rhythms and then singing and then dancing. Did you want to say anything more about his performance or
Yeah, I
any more
just had a
general
final note.
comments?
Something I forgot before was that the guitarists, Gary Hayes and Anzonini, that day, this is the first time they'd ever performed together.
Huh.
So, and you may have noticed in the film that Anzonini would give little, through gesture, the way he looked at Gary, the way he used to set the tempo, that there was some communication. They both understood the forms, and so they were able to work together, even though they hadn't before.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
and
quite a performance.
yeah, thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for joining me to talk about Pedro Bacán and Anzonini.
It's my pleasure.
These wonderful musicians, alas, are no longer with us, but thanks to Robert Garfius, Gary Margison, and the University of Washington Ethnomusicology Archives, we can continue to enjoy their unique performances on film. I'm Laurel Sercom, and this is UW Sounds of the World. See you next time.